Hey everyone, I'm Emma from DotK Design. Welcome to my channel, and this is going to be the very first Bible journaling tutorial. Fanfare! I'm so excited. But yeah, thank you for joining me today, and I hope that you will enjoy the spread that we're going to go through. So yeah, it's all very exciting. This is all new. But there will be more videos and more tutorials coming, so don't forget to like and subscribe. That would be awesome. Thank you. But onto today's tutorial. We're going to be looking at Psalm 56. If you followed me on Instagram or you've seen my shop and stuff, you'll know that I love the Psalms. There's just so much amazing stuff in the Psalms, isn't there? But today we're going to concentrate on Psalm 56. And during my devotional time, as I was reading through the Psalm, there's just verse 8 that really sticks out for me. And I'll read it to you now. It says, "You have kept count of my tossings and put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book?" Yeah, what an amazing, amazing, amazing thing that God has got a bottle full of your tears. Every tear, and he has kept record of each and every one. Yeah, just mind-blowing. So yeah, that's what we're going to be looking at today in this tutorial. So I'm going to show you here what the spread will look like roughly. I'm not painted up, but this one is from the Psalm 56 Bible Journaling Kit, which is available in my shop. I will put a link in the description to that. So what this is, like the little jar, obviously bottle. It's funny, the word that they use there for bottle, when you look deeper into the meaning behind the scriptures and things and looking at it can mean jar as well. So I've gone with a jar. But hey, could do a bottle if you wanted, same sort of thing. But this, in the kit, you get the little the jar and the flowers to stick, and then it comes with the tears that slide in. It's like a little pocket, and they just go in here. The great thing with these little tears is which you can do is just, you can write things on the back. So anything that you've cried over and you want to hand over to God, you can write it on the tear and pop it in the little pocket. But anyway, so we're going to look at painting the bottle. I'm going to show you the flowers and then the wording as well, which will go with it. Right, so before we get started, I'm just going to have a quick rundown of supplies that you will need for the spread. Obviously, your journaling Bible or whatever you like to use for your journaling. Even just watercolour paper is fine. I quite often do journaling on like little 4x6 cards, postcard sized ones, which is quite nice to do. You'll need your watercolour paints. I'm using Sennelier Watercolours, but whatever brand takes your fancy. It could even be just like a children's watercolour paint set. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. I will quickly run through the colours that I will be using so you can follow along with the colour mixes. I will mention in the description actually which colours I've used, so it's a bit easier for you. So we've got titanium white, turquoise green, cobalt green, hooker's green. There's another green here somewhere. Oh yeah, there we go. Forest green, Colbalt Blue, indigo, and Dioxazine Purple. That one's going to annoy me. They're upside down. Why don't I do them upside down? Anyway, so yeah, watercolours. You'll also need brushes. I like to use pointed round brushes. I've got some here in a 0, a 2 and a 4, but whatever brushes take your fancy. Pencil. I always recommend like a really hard pencil because they're a lot easier to rub out the lines if you're a bit like me and you don't like to see lots of pencil lines after you've finished. And a rubber, a pen of your choice for doing your lettering. I'll be using a flex nib calligraphy pen. You could use a dip pen or a brush pen, whatever takes your fancy. Some clean water and some paper towel. I think that's about it. Right, so before we start painting, I like to roughly sketch out the design before I paint it up. So on here I've designed my lettering how I want it to go in my Bible. I've got it on a separate piece of paper, which is always handy. And the great thing with Bible pages generally is they're very thin. Journaling Bibles, they tend to be a little bit thicker, but hopefully you should still be able to see anything that you, so you can trace through if you want to. Another handy little trick, what you can do is, if you're struggling to see through, you can use your phone, your phone screen to underneath, and you can use that as a bit like a light box type thing. I've already just traced the lettering out, a bit like Blue Peter. Here's one I prepared earlier. But then we're going to start off by sketching out the bottle or the jar. I just went on Pinterest and searched vintage jars or like mason jars, or even if you've got like a jam jar at home, you could copy. That's great. So I'm just going to start sketching that out. Roll my sleeves up, down to business. So I'm with this spread. I've really decided I kind of want the lettering up here, and I'm going to keep the bottle down here, so it kind of balances the page out a little bit. So I'm just going to roughly sketch this jar in. I always start with like 2 parallel lines for the side of the jar. Just bring that down here. And then for the bottom, just bring like a little curve round to meet the 2. And then just bring the sides in a little. I'm just going to put the neck on the jar here. And again, just bring the neck of the jar up, 2 parallel lines to start. And then a curved line for the top. And then you can kind of bring that line round, so it's kind of like a squished oval. So it kind of gives that effect that that's like the open neck of the bottle there. And then I'm going to put some of the little screw lines on here too. There we go, that's our rough jar. I'm also going to put down the bottom here where we've got this curved line at the bottom. I'm just going to bring it round again similar to that top, like a squished oval, to kind of give the illusion of the jar, the inside of the jar. Bring it round. So this is all rough, we're going to paint over it soon anyway. If you want to, you can add maybe some little shading details. If you want to leave some pencil lines on there, just to kind of show where the bottle. Because I've just gone for opposite corners, so it kind of shows the shape of the bottle a little bit more. Or jar. So there we go. It's a rough bottle. Hopefully my head's not in shot. As my son would say, Mummy, you're such a noob. He's really told me I need to get a YouTube play button. Who knew? It's good to have dreams, right? So I've rough sketched the bottle in. I've already popped my letters in there. Then I'm going to show you how to paint this bottle. But first, before we do any more painting, I want to mix up the colours ready. So for the bottle, I've just used indigo. So I'm going to get a very, very diluted mix of indigo paint here on my brush. You don't need a lot. We're just going to you want like a really diluted mix because you don't want it to be too dark. So I've got some mixed up there. Also, a good thing to do is to, especially if you're using watercolours when you're painting, and if you are painting directly into your Bible, is to pop a sheet of paper underneath so that it doesn't bleed through, which I've forgotten to do. So I'm going to get a piece of paper. I will be right back. Right, I'm back. I've got my scrap piece of paper. As I was saying, you just pop that under there. And just stops any water going through, especially with painting this jar, because we're going to get the page quite wet. It will go a little bit wrinkly, but don't worry, it's not so bad when it dries. And you can even If the wrinkles bother you, you can even go over it really, really gently with like a little iron, like a travel iron or something like that, and you can smooth it out quite a lot. So anyway, so we've got our really diluted mix of indigo, and literally all I'm going to do is I'm just going to wet the page. This is just clean water at the moment. I'm just going to wet the paper so that we can, and I'm just being careful to stay in the lines of our jar. And I want the page quite wet. You can see why we put that scrap piece of paper there now. Okay. So it's all nice and wet. You don't want it like soaking wet, but you want it so if you look in the light, it's like got a sheen to it, but not so that it's all dribbling down the page. Okay, so we've got our jar nice and wet, and I'm going to pick up some of that dilute mix of indigo here. And then literally all you're going to do is, where you can see on this one where we've got like the shadows of the bottle, to give that illusion of the glass. We don't want to go in and paint the whole thing blue, but we just want to kind of dab this indigo paint to give that kind of illusion. So I'm going to start down here where we put our little bits of shading in here and take it up to the side there. And where we've got the page wet, it will help the paint to sort of bleed around and sort of give us a nice soft edge. But if you find it starts to dry off, you can always just rinse your brush with some get some more clean water and just dampen it off again. So I'm taking it down that side, and I just sort of brought it round. I'm gonna sort of roughly paint on some of the shape of the bottle so you can kind of see how it is. I'm gonna take a little bit at this side. And around the top as well, and in this corner here to kind of give that illusion of that. Let's put this one there, it's got a bit dark there. And then around this rim here, a bit more paint, just around the rim, so you can see that a bit more. You can always go over this again with pencil if you want to sort of bring out a bit more of the details in it, which works quite nicely. And if you've got any bits you want to darken up a little bit, you can just pop a little bit of paint on there into that wet paint. And you can see how it kind of smooths out. And so if it looks a little bit dark when you first paint it, don't panic, because it dries a lot paler than what it is when it's wet. I think that's about it. So I'm going to let that dry for a little bit. You can let it air dry, or you can use like a craft heat gun, or even hair dryer if you want, if you're too impatient to wait for it to dry, which I tend to be quite a lot of the time. But while we're waiting for that to dry, I'm going to go through some of the other colours that we're going to need. Excuse me. So you can see here we've got this really pretty like cornflower blue, which I think it's really nice. I really like that colour. And for that you're going to need your cobalt green, your titanium white, the purple, and I think that's it actually. Right, so let's make up this cornflowery mix. So onto my palette I am going to take some cobalt green. And some Dioxazine Purple. And some titanium white. When you first mix it up, if it's a little bit purpley, still, you just slowly add a bit more green. that Cobalt Green. It's like a turquoise. It's called Cobalt Green. It's like a really, really beautiful, like a dark turquoise. Really beautiful. Let's put a touch more white in there. And just keep playing around with those colours until you get a mix that you are happy with. You could do the flowers any colour you like, really, but I went for like a cornflower. And while we're colour mixing, we'll mix up our leaf mix as well. And this is literally just that forest green. I love this green. It's such a really, it's like a real Christmas tree green. Yeah, really beautiful. And then I've just sort of brightened it up a little bit with some Hooker's green. So we've got that mixed up ready. And I've just realised I forgot to tell you one of the colours, didn't I? So for these ones here, and for some of the detailing on this bottom flower, and for the little stamens and the flowers, I've actually used some gold paint. The gold that I've used is actually a Holbein gold. I think it's actually just called gold, and it's in a pan. But you could use whatever gold paint you have to hand, or even like a gold gel pen would be quite handy. You could put those in, or if you don't want to put gold in, you could use maybe like a yellow or a pale brown to pop those. It'd actually look really nice and autumnal actually if you used a brown, to put the stamens in and any other little details you want. So I'm gonna wet my gold pan ready as well. That's starting to dry now on jar 2. Doesn't take long to dry. Okay. Right. So I'm going to start with these little flowers at the top, I think. Just sort of group together. Paint a bit of a mixy. Move that out of the way. So I've kind of got them sort of grouped here on the side. I'm going to pop one here, and these little flowers are really, really easy to paint. Get a nice tip to your brush. You can do that by just sort of twisting your brush in your palette, so it comes to a nice point. And literally they're just made up of 4 petals, so literally it's just like a light pressure to start, and then to a heavier pressure for 1, 2, and then you can sort of fiddle around and make them. Okay. Now this one is going to be, so it's sort of facing this way. So then I'm going to put like almost like a C shape here for that. Right there. Sometimes they can look a little bit odd until you put the stamens in, so don't worry if it doesn't look how you want first go. And then always try and remember as well just to leave a little bit of white space in between. I'm going to put another one here. I think this one's going to come in here. And just play around wherever you want them to go, really. It doesn't have to be 3, you could do 4, or even just make them a bit smaller if you want. And saying this is the beauty of Bible journaling, is you can just... It's your Bible, it's your journal, it's your time with God. You can just make it your own. I think as people, we just tend to overcomplicate things, don't we? And Bible journaling is just a way to be creative with God and spend time in His presence. It doesn't have to be anything fancy or anything like that. So I've popped some little petals there. I'm going to paint this one down here as well while I've got this colour on my brush. This is going to be a little 4 petal one here. Yeah, just play around until you're happy. I'm going to let that dry off a little bit. And then I'm going to go in with my leaf mix. Yeah. I'm just going to paint some leaves. Again, just bring your brush to a nice point. And with leaves, really easy. Literally, you can just sort of paint wherever you want your stems to come in. Just do like a really thin line, and then a heavier pressure to a light pressure, just to get that nice leaf shape. And you can just take them wherever you want. Just dot them around. I'll put one in there. Back it out. Maybe one there. So just have fun with it, you know. It's doesn't have to be perfect. I'll put these leaves in here as well. So again, just bringing that stem in here, then a heavier pressure, bringing it to the tip toe of the brush to get that nice point on your leaf. You can always go in and do the other side if it's a little bit odd shaped. And you can use whatever size brush you want. I've got my 4 brush here that I'm using at the moment, but if you feel more comfortable with a smaller brush, especially if you're just sort of starting out, it's a bit easier until you get used to controlling the different pressures on your brush. Okay, I'm going to get some of this beautiful Holbein gold on my brush now. This is such a beautiful colour. A little bit much, that's a bit of a twist. There we go. I'm going to put some gold leaves in here. And I'm going to leave the leaves to dry because they're still quite wet at the moment. So, but I think the flowers are pretty much dry enough to go and put in the little stamens. So literally all you want to do is just, with the tip of your brush, just pop some little dabs in there. See, they sort of come together and look like flowers once you get those stamens in. Some here, and some for this little one here. Okay. I'm going to get a really small amount of gold on my brush now because we want... Actually, I'm going to go with a smaller brush for this. If you've got a smaller one, I'm going to go with my size 0 brush here. Get it to a nice tip and get some of that lovely gold. I'm going to put some details on these leaves here, just like the veins down the centre of the leaf. Just really, really lightly with your brush, run it down the centre of the leaf. There we go. I am going to do some on these as well because they just look pretty, such a pretty colour. And I'm a magpie. Anything sparkly. So there. So I'm going to leave that to dry for a little bit and then we'll come back and I'll show you the lettering. Right, so it's all nice and dry. I am going to go over the lines of my jar just with my pencil, just to kind of bring out a bit more of the detail. If you want to do this, you can. But now you've kind of got that kind of rough sketch, you can go in and just sort of put in a bit more detail, being careful not to go over any of the flowers that you've painted, just so you can see the edges a little bit crisper. As I said, this is completely optional, but I've decided this time I'm going to put a nice edge on. I mean, you could even do this in like a fine liner if you wanted, just to bring some of those details out a little bit more. There we go. You can see the bottom a bit better now. There we go. That's better. I like that one. Right, so lettering. As I said before, I'm going to be using my Flex fountain pen. Loaded up in here, I have got some Diamine shimmer ink. This one that I use is called Shimmering Seas. It's really beautiful. It's like a really deep inky blue, but it's got like a gold shimmer on it. You do have to be careful with some pens, and especially if you're using a journaling Bible. It's always a good idea at the pages at the front of your Bible or at the back, you know, where you have like the spare pages, like the introductions and maybe like the where you have all the weights and all that, or reading plans put in. You could always use one of those pages to test any inks or any pens that you're going to be using to see if they bleed or whether they feather out. I know personally with these Diamine inks, if you've got a really wet fountain pen or if you're using a dip pen, you need to be quite careful not to put too much on the page, otherwise it does bleed a little bit. But it's not too bad as long as you don't kind of put loads of ink on the page, on my Bible anyway, in particular. But it's always a good idea just to test any pens, or if you're using like a brush pen or anything like that, just give it a little test on a page that you're not too fussed about, rather than kind of going in and inking it up on your nice spread and then deciding that you're not happy because the pen has gone and the ink has bled everywhere over your nice spread. So I'm just going to move that a little bit so I can reach. So I said to you before, I'd already lettered up the wording, and I've just used here. You put my tears in your bottle, and I've just put that underneath, traced it out in pencil very lightly. I don't think you can see the pencil on the camera, but it is there. And then I'm going to get my pen. And if you are using a calligraphy pen or a brush pen, and you want that variation in the thick and the thin lines, it's light pressure on your upstroke. So anytime you move your pen upwards, you're using real light pressure. And then if you're you want the heavier strokes, when you bring your pen down on a downstroke, is you put more pressure on, and that opens the tines or flattens the brush, giving you that thicker line. If you're a little bit unsure about this, and you don't want to go straight into your Bible, it's always good to practice it on a few scrap pieces of paper first, before you pop it in your Bible or your journal or whatever. Always good to practice on a scrap piece and mess it up on a scrap piece. But anyway, but like I said earlier, this doesn't have to be perfect. It's just the enjoyment and just being in God's presence and spending time in His Word and contemplating on it. Yeah. So anyway, I will stop blabbering, and I'm going to letter this in. So again, as I was saying, light pressure on the upstroke and then a heavier on the down. I'm not going to go crazy mad with the downs, because this pen is absolutely gorgeous, but it's really wet. It brings loads of ink onto the page, and because the Bible paper is quite thin, it doesn't like too much ink, with this ink in particular anyway. Again, just light pressure on the up and then a heavier on the down. Love this ink though. You might not be able to see it on camera, but when it catches the light in certain ways, it's got like this really beautiful gold shimmery spirit. Just a nice little flourish in there as well, just to balance it. You know, you can do your lettering however you like. I mean, you can even I've got some really cute little rubber stamps. They're like little alphabet stamps, and that you could even, you know, just if you're not confident in doing lettering, you can just stamp them in, or even just find a nice font on your computer and write it out, print it on your printer, and stick it in, or even print it on your printer and then trace it if you want, you know. Just finding what works for you. And then this last flourish. All of the flourish, right? There we go. Spread complete. You know, you want to play around with it, you can add some more flowers or whatever you want. But yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial, and I hope more importantly that you enjoy your time in Psalm 56. Yeah, thanks for having me, and as I say, I hope you've enjoyed it. Any questions or any comments, I'd love to hear from you in the comments, and any suggestions or anything that you'd like to see for another spread, then let me know. Okay, take care, God bless.